My sister stole my fiancé 3 days before our wedding, so I gave her the wedding gift she'd never forget. I should have seen it coming. Maya had always been the golden child. Prettier, smarter, more charming. Growing up, she borrowed my clothes, my friends, and eventually my boyfriends. When I was 16, she convinced my crush Tommy Martinez to take her to prom instead of me by telling him I'd been talking about another guy. When I was 22, she moved in with my college boyfriend David while I was studying abroad in Italy, claiming she was helping him through depression after his father died. Each time, my parents defended her with the same tired excuses. Maya doesn't mean to hurt you, Mom would say, stroking my hair while I cried. She just has this magnetic personality. People are drawn to her. Your sister's not malicious, Dad would add. She's just young and doesn't think things through. But Maya always thought things through. I'd learned that the hard way when I found her diary at 15, full of detailed plans for stealing my friends, my opportunities, my life. She'd written about Tommy. Claire's so boring. I bet I could get him to notice me in one conversation. About David. He's too good for Claire anyway. She doesn't appreciate what she has. But I thought Jake Patterson was different. We'd been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. We'd met at a restaurant where I was waitressing to pay for nursing school, and he was working as a line cook with dreams bigger than his paycheck. Jake loved how I made him laugh during his worst kitchen disasters, scraping burned sauce off pans at 2 a.m. while he practiced new recipes. He loved how I supported his dreams of opening a restaurant, contributing my entire savings account, $23,000, to his business plan, when banks wouldn't give him a loan. He loved how I believed in him when his own family called him a failure for dropping out of college to attend culinary school. Jake had seen Maya manipulate men before. He'd been there during family dinners when she'd flirt shamelessly with my high school boyfriend Matt right in front of me, then claim she was just being friendly when I confronted her. He'd rolled his eyes at her wedding dress shopping commentary. Claire's so practical, but wouldn't something more form-fitting be better? You want Jake to be excited, not comfortable. He'd laughed when she'd accidentally spilled red wine on my engagement photos at last year's Christmas party, claiming the lighting made me look washed out and offering to retake them with her photographer friend. Your sister is exhausting, he'd told me after that party. I don't know how you put up with her constant drama. I'd defended Maya like always. She means well, she just doesn't have a filter. The rehearsal dinner was perfect. We'd rented the private dining room at Bella Vista, the restaurant where Jake and I had our first official date. 50 of our closest family and friends filled the space with laughter and champagne toasts. Jake squeezed my hand under the table while my father gave his speech about finding your person, about how proud he was to welcome Jake into our family, about how he'd watched Jake grow from a struggling cook into a man worthy of his daughter's love. Maya sat across from us, radiant in her sapphire bridesmaid dress that cost me $400, toasting our happiness with champagne and that smile I'd trusted my whole life. She'd insisted on sitting directly across from Jake, claiming it was the best spot for photos. Throughout dinner, she'd lean forward when Jake spoke, laugh just a little too loud at his jokes, touch his arm when making points about the wedding timeline. She's just excited for you, Jake had whispered when I noticed her behavior. Maya's always been dramatic. When it came time for the maid of honor speech, Maya stood with tears in her eyes, holding the microphone like she was addressing the United Nations. Claire has always been my role model, she'd said, her voice breaking with what seemed like genuine emotion. She's taught me about loyalty, about supporting the people you love no matter what. When Jake came into her life, I saw my sister transform into the happiest version of herself. Jake, you're getting someone who will fight for your dreams, who will stand by you through anything. Claire, you're getting someone who sees how incredible you are. She'd raised her glass with a trembling hand. To Claire and Jake, may you always choose each other first, no matter what challenges come your way. The room erupted in applause. Jake kissed my cheek, whispering, your sister really loves you. I'd felt guilty for ever doubting Maya's intentions. 2 nights later, I couldn't sleep. Wedding nerves, I thought. Our big day was in 18 hours. I'd already laid out my dress, a vintage-inspired A-line with hand-sewn pearls that my grandmother had worn in 1952. I'd confirmed the final head count with the caterer, 147 guests. Double-checked that the rings were safely tucked in Jake's best man's pocket, and made sure the photographer knew about the special shot of my parents' wedding rings next to ours. My phone was set with alarms every hour to remind me to drink water and eat something. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep and decided to surprise Jake with coffee at his apartment, our last morning as an unmarried couple. I'd picked up his favorite dark roast from the 24-hour diner and grabbed fresh bagels. My key turned in his lock like it had hundreds of times before, the same lock I'd helped him install when he'd moved into the 1-bedroom apartment above Mrs. Chen's flower shop. I found them in his bed, my sister, my fiancé, the white silk lingerie I'd bought for our honeymoon, $300 worth of delicate lace from the boutique Maya had recommended, tangled around her ankles. The engagement ring I'd watched him save for, working double shifts for 8 months, gleaming on the nightstand next to empty champagne glasses, and what looked like leftover takeout from Russo's, the Italian place where we'd celebrated our 6-month anniversary. Maya saw me first. Instead of shame or surprise, I saw triumph in her eyes. She'd been waiting for this moment, planning for it. I was going to tell you, she said, sitting up slowly, not bothering to cover herself. Jake realized he chose the wrong sister. Jake scrambled for his boxers, stammering apologies about it just happening, about being confused, about still loving me somehow. His face was red with shame and panic, sweat beading on his forehead as he tried to find words that could possibly explain what I was seeing. Claire, this isn't what it looks like, he said, the most cliché lie possible. But Maya cut him off with a laugh that chilled my blood. The same laugh she'd used when she'd told our parents I'd broken Mom's antique vase when we were 12. The laugh that meant she'd won again. Stop pretending you're sorry, Jake. We've been planning this for months. Tell her about the hotel room in Vegas when you went for that restaurant conference. Tell her about Christmas when you said my name in your sleep. Tell her about last week when you said you wished you'd met me first. My knees almost buckled. The Vegas conference was in March, 7 months ago. Christmas was at my parents' house where Maya had stayed in the guest room next to ours. Last week, when Jake had been distant and claiming work stress. Tell her about the loan, Maya continued, her voice getting stronger, more confident. Tell her how you're planning to use her savings to open a restaurant with me instead. The room spun. My $23,000. The money I'd saved working 60-hour weeks as a nursing assistant, picking up extra shifts during holidays, skipping meals to put away every possible dollar. The money that was supposed to fund our dream restaurant, Patterson's Place. Maya, stop, Jake said weakly, but she was on a roll now. Tell her about the apartment we looked at last week. The one with the big kitchen and the garden view. Tell her how we've been planning to leave right after the wedding, take her money, and start fresh in Portland. Portland. Jake had mentioned Portland recently, claiming a chef friend had offered him a job there. I'd encouraged him to consider it, thinking it might be good for us to start fresh somewhere new. Months. While I'd been ordering flowers and scheduling cake tastings, sending save the dates and choosing centerpieces, confirming RSVPs and finalizing seating charts, they'd been planning my humiliation. The late nights Jake claimed he was working at the restaurant, coming home smelling like perfume he said was from the female servers. The times Maya canceled our sisterly shopping trips because she had a date with someone she couldn't tell me about yet. The way they'd both been so helpful with wedding planning, insisting on handling the photographer and videographer themselves because they had connections who could save us money. We picked Chelsea Morrison, Maya had said about the photographer. She's incredible with candid shots. She'll capture every moment. Now I understood why. I walked out without a word. They were still calling my name as I descended the narrow stairs, Jake's voice breaking as he begged me to listen, Maya's sharp and demanding as she told him to let me go. Claire, please, Jake shouted from his window as I got in my car. Let me explain. I drove away slowly, watching him in my rearview mirror as he stood half naked in his window, probably realizing his life was about to implode. For the next 6 hours, I sat in my car at Sunset Beach, the place where Jake had proposed 13 months earlier. He'd planned an elaborate sunset picnic, complete with my favorite Thai food and a playlist of songs that meant something to our relationship. When he'd gotten down on one knee, he'd talked about building a life together, about how I was his best friend and his future all wrapped into one person. I can't imagine doing any of this without you, he'd said, his hands shaking as he opened the ring box. You make me better at everything. I should have been crying, calling my parents, canceling vendors. Instead, I felt something cold and calculating settle in my chest. Maya had taken everything from me since we were children, and each time I'd forgiven her because family was supposed to forgive. But this time was different. This wasn't a borrowed sweater or a stolen boyfriend. This was my future, my money, my life she'd planned to destroy. I drove home at 11 a.m. and found my parents in the kitchen, frantically calling vendors to cancel the wedding. Mom was sobbing over a conversation with the florist about losing the deposit. Dad looked 10 years older, his hair disheveled as he argued with the caterer about their cancellation policy. Sweetheart, Mom said when she saw me, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. Jake called. He explained about the confusion with Maya. He says it's just cold feet, that these things happen to couples before big commitments. Maybe you two can work it out if you just talk through it. Even now, they were taking his side. Maya was their precious baby who could do no wrong, and Jake was practically family after 4 years. I was just the wounded party who needed to be more understanding. There's no confusion, I said calmly, setting my purse on the counter. The wedding is still happening tomorrow, just not the way anyone expects. My parents exchanged worried glances. Dad cleared his throat. Honey, maybe you're in shock. This is a lot to process. Why don't you sit down and we can figure out how to move forward? I'm not in shock, I said, pouring myself a glass of water with steady hands. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in months. And I said the wedding is still happening. I locked myself in my childhood bedroom and got to work. First, I called my cousin Derek, who worked in tech security for a company that protected celebrities from stalkers and corporate espionage. Derek had always been my favorite relative, 3 years older, wickedly smart, and someone who'd never fallen for Maya's manipulation. When we were kids, he'd been the only one to call her out when she'd lie about breaking things or stealing money from our grandmother's purse. I need a favor, I said when he answered. Remember when you said I could ask for anything after I helped you through your divorce? Derek's ex-wife had tried to take him for everything, including his dog and his grandmother's wedding ring. I'd spent 3 months helping him document her affair and her attempts to hide assets. When the divorce was final, he'd gotten full custody of his dog and kept everything she'd tried to steal. Name it, he said immediately. I explained the situation, the affair, the money, the planned betrayal. Derek listened without interrupting, occasionally making disgusted sounds. Those pieces of shit, he said when I finished. What do you need? Derek had designed security systems for celebrity weddings, installed hidden cameras in offices for corporate investigations, and helped several friends gather evidence of cheating spouses. He understood discretion. More importantly, he understood revenge. I need to know everything, I said. How long this has been going on, what they've been planning, whether there are others involved. And I need it documented in a way that can't be questioned or denied. Give me Jake's address and phone number, Derek said. I can have micro cameras installed in his apartment within 2 hours. His phone can be cloned if I can get physical access for 30 seconds. How technical do you want to get? As technical as necessary. And Derek, I need this done legally. Everything has to be admissible if it comes to that. Leave that to me. Jake's apartment building doesn't have security cameras, right? And his lease probably includes standard language about management access for maintenance. I'll pose as a cable repair guy. Half the buildings in that neighborhood have been having internet issues this week. Next, I called Chelsea Morrison, the wedding photographer Maya had personally recommended. Chelsea specialized in candid moments and had an impressive portfolio of capturing authentic emotions at weddings. Her website featured testimonials from brides praising her ability to document the real story of their special day. Chelsea, this is Claire Richardson. You're photographing my wedding tomorrow. Oh my God, Claire, I'm so excited. Maya's told me so much about you. Are you having pre-wedding jitters? You sound a little stressed. Interesting. Maya had told her about me. Actually, I'm calling because there's been a change in plans. I have a very specific shot list for tomorrow, and I need to know you're willing to capture some unconventional moments. Of course, I pride myself on getting the shots other photographers miss. What did you have in mind? I need you to document everything that happens tomorrow. Everything. Even if it seems inappropriate or uncomfortable. Especially if it seems inappropriate or uncomfortable. Can you do that? There was a pause. Maya mentioned you might want some dramatic shots. She said you're really into authentic storytelling. I'm totally on board. Should I bring extra memory cards? So Maya had been planning this for a while, setting up her friend to document my humiliation. Perfect. Bring everything you have. And Chelsea, there might be some video components to tomorrow's event. Are you comfortable with live streaming? Absolutely. I do a lot of social media integration. Will this be going on Instagram stories or Facebook Live? Something like that. One more thing. I need you to keep this conversation between us. The surprise elements won't work if word gets out. Your secret's safe with me. Maya always said you were more creative than people give you credit for. After I hung up, I sat staring at my phone. Maya had been planning this humiliation for months, setting up her photographer friend to capture my breakdown. She'd probably imagined viral videos of me sobbing at the altar, content that would follow me forever. Then I made the hardest call of all. Mrs. Patterson? I said when Jake's mother answered on the second ring. It's Claire. I have something important to tell you about tomorrow's wedding. Jake's mother, Patricia, had never liked Maya. She called her that manipulative little peacock after Maya had flirted shamelessly with Jake's married brother at our engagement party, complete with hair flipping and inappropriate touching while his wife was in the bathroom. Mrs. Patterson was old-school Baptist with strong opinions about moral behavior and women who threw themselves at taken men. What's wrong, dear? She asked, immediately picking up on my tone. You sound upset. I told her everything. About finding them together. About the months of lies. About how they'd planned to humiliate me at my own wedding and steal my savings. About the apartment in Portland and the restaurant they wanted to open with my money. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. I could hear her breathing, short and sharp, like she was trying to control herself. Those sinful children, she finally whispered, her voice shaking with rage. After everything you've done for that boy, after you supported him through culinary own save, after you when his own father called him a worthless. Jake's father had been particularly brutal during family dinners, constantly comparing Jake to his successful older brother who worked in finance. I'd spent countless evenings building Jake back up after his father tore him down. Mrs. Patterson, I have a plan, I said, but I need your help. Tell me what you need, sweetheart. That boy has been heading for a fall his whole life, and Maya's exactly the kind of woman who'll drag him straight to hell. Mrs. Patterson had been waiting 30 years to put someone like Maya in her place. She'd grown up in a small southern town, where women who stole other women's men were dealt with swiftly and publicly. She understood the value of a good, old-fashioned reckoning. I explained my plan. Mrs. Patterson listened, occasionally making approving sounds. You're sure this is legal? She asked when I finished. Derek's handling the technical aspects. Everything will be documented properly. And technically, I'm not doing anything except allowing the truth to come out at my own wedding. Good. Jake needs to learn that actions have consequences, and Maya needs to understand that not everyone will just roll over and let her take what she wants. There's one more thing, I said. I need you to make sure Jake shows up tomorrow. If he tries to run or cancel, this won't work. Oh, he'll be there, Mrs. Patterson said grimly. I'll make sure of it. That boy owes you an explanation in front of everyone who came to support your relationship. The least he can do is face the music. The morning of my wedding, I woke up at 6 a.m. feeling calmer than I had in months. My phone was already buzzing with messages. Bridesmaids asking about timing, vendors confirming details, relatives asking for directions to the church. Maya texted me at 6:15. Jake told me everything. I'm so sorry, sis. I never meant for this to happen. Can we talk before the ceremony? I need to explain. I stared at the message for a full minute. Even now, she was lying, planning to manipulate me one last time, probably hoping to convince me to quietly cancel everything and slink away while she and Jake rode off into the sunset with my money. I texted back, of course. See you at the church. We'll have plenty of time to talk. She had no idea I'd spent the night making sure every detail was perfect for her special day. Derek had sent me a text at 3 a.m. Package delivered. Everything's in place. You're going to love the bonus footage. Bonus footage meant he'd found more than I'd expected. Maya and Jake had probably been sloppy, thinking they were in the clear once the wedding was over. At 8 a.m., my hair and makeup team arrived. I'd kept the original appointments, telling them there had been some changes. but that we were proceeding as planned. Sarah, my makeup artist, noticed my calm demeanor. "You seem really zen for a bride," she said while applying my foundation. "Usually by now, brides are crying or yelling or both." "I'm exactly where I need to be," I said, which was the truth. At 10 a.m., I arrived at St. Mary's Catholic Church in my wedding dress. The guests were already arriving. 200 people who'd taken time off work, bought gifts, booked hotel rooms, and traveled from as far as California to celebrate what they thought was my happily ever after. I could see Jake's college roommates in the parking lot, laughing and adjusting their ties. My nursing school friends were clustered near the entrance, admiring the flower arrangements I'd spent months selecting. Maya waited in the bridal suite, wearing the sapphire bridesmaid dress that cost me $400. She looked nervous for the first time in her life, fidgeting with her hair and checking her reflection obsessively. When I walked in, she jumped up like she'd been caught doing something wrong. "Claire, I need to explain." "No explanation needed," I said, adjusting her hair with gentle hands. "You want Jake? You can have him." Her face lit up with relief and victory, the same expression she'd worn when she'd convinced our parents to let her have my bedroom when I left for college. "Really? You're not mad? How could I be mad?" I smiled serenely. "You're my sister. If you think Jake is your soulmate, who am I to stand in the way of true love?" Maya practically glowed. She'd gotten everything she wanted without consequences. Again. In her mind, I was the same pushover sister who'd always rolled over whenever she wanted something. "You're being so mature about this," she said, hugging me carefully to avoid messing up our makeup. "I was worried you'd make a scene." "Me? Make a scene?" I laughed. "When have I ever made a scene?" "Never," she said quickly. "You've always been so reasonable. That's why Jake and I knew you'd understand eventually. There's just one tiny change to the ceremony," I said casually, helping her touch up her lipstick. "Since you two are so in love, I thought you should be the one to walk down the aisle today." Maya's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I've arranged for you to marry Jake instead. Right now. In front of everyone." The color drained from her face. "Claire, we can't just—" "Why not? You love him. He loves you. Everyone's already here. The flowers are paid for, the cake is ready, the photographer is set up, and I've arranged for a very special documentation of your big moment." I could see her mind racing. This wasn't how she'd planned to steal my fiancé. She wanted to do it slowly, carefully, making herself look like the innocent victim who'd been swept away by unexpected love. She wanted to be the tragic heroine of a romance novel, not the homewrecker who stole her sister's wedding. "But what will you tell everyone?" she asked weakly. "The truth," I said simply. "That my sister and my fiancé found their soulmate in each other. That I'm stepping aside for true love. That everyone should witness the beginning of your beautiful life together." Maya knew she was trapped. If she refused, she'd look like the manipulative homewrecker she was. If she accepted, she'd be married to Jake before she could think through the consequences. And backing out now would require explaining to 200 guests why she couldn't marry the man she'd been having an affair with for months. "Where is Jake?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Getting ready in the men's suite. He's so excited to marry you, Maya. He kept talking about how you're everything he ever wanted in a woman." That was a lie. Jake had spent the morning texting me frantically, begging to talk, promising it was all a mistake. He'd called 17 times between 6 and 8 a.m. before I'd blocked his number. I'd forwarded all his messages to Maya instead, along with a note. "Your groom seems nervous. Maybe you should comfort him." 20 minutes later, Maya stood at the back of St. Mary's in a hastily altered wedding dress borrowed from our cousin Jennifer, who was conveniently the same size and had brought her dress for photos. The congregation murmured in confusion as Pastor Williams stepped to the microphone. "Due to unexpected circumstances," Pastor Williams said carefully, reading from the script I'd given him, "we're celebrating the union of Jake Patterson and Maya Richardson today, instead of Claire Richardson and Jake Patterson." The murmurs grew louder. I sat in the front row next to my parents, who looked mortified and confused. Dad kept whispering urgent questions that I answered with serene smiles and vague responses about love finding a way. Maya's smile was brittle as she walked down the aisle to Jake, who stood at the altar looking like he might vomit. He kept glancing at me desperately, probably hoping I'd stop this insanity. The organist played "Here Comes the Bride," while the congregation watched the strangest wedding ceremony they'd ever attended. Chelsea, the photographer, snapped away enthusiastically, just as I'd requested. She'd positioned herself perfectly to capture both Maya's forced smile and Jake's obvious distress. When Pastor Williams asked if anyone objected to the union, I could feel 200 pairs of eyes on me. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. I smiled serenely and gave a small, encouraging nod for the ceremony to continue. "Jake," Pastor Williams said, consulting his notes, "do you take Maya to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, for richer or poorer, in sickness and health, for as long as you both shall live?" Jake glanced at me one more time, his eyes pleading. I maintained my serene expression. He had no choice now. His mother was glaring at him from the second row. 200 guests were waiting for his answer. Maya was gripping his hands so tightly her knuckles were white. "I do," he croaked. "Maya, do you take Jake to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, for richer or poorer, in sickness and health, for as long as you both shall live?" Maya hesitated for just a moment, probably realizing that "for richer or poorer" might not work out the way she'd planned, but she lifted her chin defiantly, putting on the performance of her life. "I do. You may kiss the bride." The kiss was awkward and brief, more of a peck than a passionate embrace. Chelsea captured it all, along with the uncomfortable expressions of the wedding party and the confused murmurs of the guests. During the cocktail hour, I played the perfect gracious sister. I moved through the crowd explaining that love had simply found a different path, that I was thrilled to see my sister and Jake together, that sometimes the universe had different plans than we did. "You're handling this so well," said Mrs. Chen, Jake's elderly neighbor, who'd known him since he moved into the apartment above her flower shop. "Most women would be devastated. Maya and Jake belong together," I said with a serene smile. "I can see that now. Sometimes it takes a dramatic moment to reveal the truth." Jake's college friends looked bewildered but went along with it. Maya's sorority sisters seemed impressed by what they saw as a romantic twist worthy of a reality TV show. The older relatives whispered among themselves, clearly shocked but not wanting to cause a scene. Maya and Jake sat at the head table during dinner, looking increasingly uncomfortable as reality set in. They were married, to each other, with no prenup, in front of everyone they knew. Jake kept checking his phone, probably looking for an escape route that didn't exist. Maya maintained her brilliant smile, but I could see the panic growing in her eyes. The dinner was exactly what I'd planned for my wedding with Jake: salmon with lemon caper sauce, roasted vegetables, wild rice pilaf. The cake was still the 3-tier vanilla and raspberry creation I'd spent hours designing with the baker. Even the flowers were the same, white roses and baby's breath that I'd chosen because they reminded me of my grandmother's garden. Everything was perfect for Maya's special day. That's when I stood up to reveal my wedding gift. "Before we cut the cake," I announced, tapping my champagne glass with a silver knife, "I have a special surprise for the happy couple." The room quieted as the guests turned their attention to me. Maya and Jake looked confused but expectant, probably thinking I was about to give some tearful speech about stepping aside for true love. "As most of you know," I continued, "Maya and Jake's love story has been developing for quite some time. I thought it would be wonderful to share that journey with all of you." The lights dimmed and a large screen descended from the ceiling, the same screen we'd rented for a slideshow of childhood photos and romantic moments. Derek had positioned himself at a corner table, laptop open, ready to run the presentation. "Chelsea has done an amazing job documenting their relationship," I said, gesturing to the photographer who was still snapping away. "But today, I want to share some earlier footage that really captures the depth of their connection." The video began with Maya and Jake in bed together in his apartment, not from the night I caught them, but from 3 months earlier. Derek's hidden cameras had captured everything in crystal clear HD. The footage showed them laughing about how clueless I was, planning their strategy for breaking up with me after the wedding. "Claire's always been so trusting," Maya said in the video, stretched out naked on my fiancé's bed. "She has no idea we've been planning this since March." The room went dead silent. You could hear the collective intake of breath from 200 shocked guests. "Tell me again about the money," Jake said on screen, running his hands down Maya's body. $23,000. She's been saving for years. Once we're married and move to Portland, she'll never be able to touch it. We'll have enough to open the restaurant and disappear before she can do anything about it." The video continued. Months of planning. Jake practicing his breakup speech while Maya tried on my wedding dress in his apartment. Maya calculating how much money they'd save by keeping all the wedding vendors I'd already paid. Jake talking about how easy it would be to manipulate me into signing over power of attorney for the restaurant business. The most damning clip was from a week ago. Maya on the phone with someone saying, "Claire's always been pathetic. She'll probably beg Jake to take her back after the wedding, but we'll be long gone by then. She's too spineless to fight for anything." 200 guests watched in stunned silence as the truth played out on the screen in excruciating detail. Jake's mother stood up and walked out halfway through, her face twisted with disgust. My parents sat frozen in horror. Maya's sorority sisters were filming everything with their phones, probably already posting to social media. When the video ended, I stood up with the microphone, my expression calm and pleasant. "Surprise," I said brightly. I thought everyone should know what kind of love story they were celebrating today. The room erupted. Guests began standing and leaving, some throwing their napkins on their tables in disgust. Jake's groomsmen looked ready to fight him. Maya's face was buried in her hands as her new mother-in-law's friends filed past, muttering about moral decay and the downfall of family values. But I wasn't finished. "One more gift," I announced as the chaos swirled around us. Derek stood up from his corner table and nodded. Every phone in the room received the same text message simultaneously, a link to a private website where the full video was posted, along with screenshots of Jake and Maya's text messages planning my humiliation and their financial betrayal. "Just so everyone can remember this special day," I said sweetly. The website includes all the footage Derek collected over the past week, including some lovely conversations about how they plan to disappear to Portland with my life savings. "And Maya, sweetheart, you might want to check your social media. I've already tagged everyone we know." Maya looked at her phone and screamed. The video was spreading across Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok faster than she could delete notifications. Derek had made sure it would be impossible to remove. He'd uploaded it to multiple platforms simultaneously and sent it to every gossip blog and local news station in the city. "The hashtag is our sisterly love," I added helpfully. "Feel free to share your thoughts." Jake finally found his voice, his face red with humiliation and rage. "Claire, you're insane. We can get this marriage annulled." "Actually," I said, pulling out a folder thick with legal documents, "you can't. You're both over 18, mentally competent, and said 'I do' in front of 200 witnesses. In this state, consummation isn't required for a legal marriage, and there's no evidence of coercion." Derek helped me research the laws thoroughly. "Congratulations, you're stuck with each other. This is revenge porn," Maya shrieked, pointing at the screen where her naked image was still displayed. "I'll sue you." "Actually," Derek called out, standing up and addressing the room like he was giving a legal presentation. Everything was filmed in spaces where you had no expectation of privacy. Jake's apartment building lease specifically mentions security cameras in common areas due to recent break-ins. The building management company installed them legally after getting tenant consent. Jake signed the paperwork 3 months ago. Plus, the church ceremony was a public event that you both consented to have filmed. He held up official-looking documents. Everything is perfectly legal. I have the permits, the consent forms, and the legal opinions to prove it. Jake grabbed Maya's arm, his knuckles white with fury. We're leaving. Good idea, I said cheerfully. Your honeymoon suite at the Hilton is already paid for. Non-refundable, unfortunately. The penthouse package with champagne and rose petals. I thought you'd appreciate the irony. As they fled through the kitchen to avoid the angry guests and the photographers who'd started arriving after Derek's social media post went viral, I heard Maya screaming at Jake about ruining her life. This is all your fault, she shrieked. You said she was stupid. You said she'd never fight back. You're the one who wanted to steal her money, Jake yelled back. You said it would be easy. Their voices faded as they disappeared into the parking lot, leaving behind a room full of stunned guests, abandoned wedding gifts, and a 3-tier cake that would go untouched. The cleanup took 2 hours. Guests left in small groups, many stopping to apologize to me for not seeing through the deception sooner. Jake's college friends seemed particularly ashamed. They'd suspected something was off but hadn't said anything because they didn't want to get involved in relationship drama. We should have told you, said Mike, Jake's roommate from culinary school. Jake's been acting weird for months, canceling plans and lying about where he was going. We thought he was just stressed about the wedding. Mrs. Patterson was the last to leave. She hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself, she said. That boy got exactly what he deserved. And Maya, well, she'll learn soon enough what kind of man she married. What do you mean? I asked. Jake's always been selfish and weak. The minute things get difficult, he runs. Maya thinks she won some great prize, but she'll discover she's married to a coward who will blame her for everything that goes wrong in their life. The next morning, I woke up in my childhood bedroom for the first time in months without anxiety crushing my chest. My phone had hundreds of messages, but not the kind I expected. Friends and extended family were reaching out with support. They'd always suspected Maya was manipulative, but had never seen proof. The video had revealed patterns they'd noticed but dismissed. The way she'd undermine other women, the way she'd flirt with taken men, the way she'd always positioned herself as the victim while creating drama. I always knew something was off about Maya, texted my college roommate Jessica. Remember when she tried to convince me you were talking bad about me behind my back? Now I know she was just trying to isolate you from your friends. Jake's restaurant investors were pulling out after seeing the video. $150,000 in promised funding gone overnight. Maya's employer, a conservative law firm that specialized in family values, had fired her for moral turpitude and behavior inconsistent with the firm's Christian principles. The best message came from Jake's brother David. Thank God you dodged that bullet. Jake's been a selfish jerk since we were kids, and Maya's perfect for him. 2 narcissists deserve each other. Mom's never been happier to be wrong about someone. 3 months later, I got a text from Maya. I want a divorce. Jake's a nightmare and everyone treats us like pariahs. Please help me. I'll pay back the money. I screenshotted it and posted it on social media with the caption, "Some people never learn. P.S. What money? I never gave you any money." The comments were brutal. People who'd watched the wedding video had shared it with their friends, and it had gone viral beyond our local community. Maya and Jake had become internet famous as the worst people ever, and proof that karma is real. A year later, Maya and Jake were still married, not because they wanted to be, but because neither could afford a divorce lawyer. Their reputations were ruined, their careers destroyed. They'd moved to 3 different states, but Derek's video followed them wherever they went. Social media algorithms made sure that anyone who searched their names found the wedding footage. Maya had to change her name legally and was working as a cashier at a gas station in Wyoming. Jake was washing dishes at a truck stop diner, his dreams of owning a restaurant permanently destroyed. Every time they tried to start over, someone would recognize them from the video. I, meanwhile, had used the year to travel, start my own nursing consulting business, and rediscover who I was without Jake's dead weight holding me back. The money I'd saved for his restaurant became the seed funding for my own company, helping hospitals improve their patient care protocols. Last month, I got engaged to Derek, the cousin who'd helped orchestrate the perfect revenge. He understood loyalty, creativity, and the importance of standing up for yourself. Our relationship had grown naturally from friendship to something deeper as we worked together to rebuild my life. You know I fell in love with you during the planning phase, he told me when he proposed. Watching you take control of your life like that, it was the sexiest thing I'd ever seen. Maya sent a bitter congratulations card to my parents' house. Hope your marriage lasts longer than your capacity for forgiveness. I sent back a simple reply. It will. I finally learned to choose people who choose me first. The wedding is next spring. Maya and Jake aren't invited, but I'm sure they'll find a way to watch the video online. After all, Derek's already promised to livestream the whole thing with the hashtag #SureRealLove. The guest list includes everyone who was at the first wedding. They're all eager to celebrate an actual love story this time. Mrs. Patterson will be walking me down the aisle since my father passed away last fall. Even Jake's college friends are coming, bringing their wives who want to meet the woman who exposed those cheaters. The best part? Every vendor from the original wedding has offered their services for free. The photographer, the florist, the caterer. They all want to be part of a real celebration after being unwitting participants in Maya and Jake's deception. This time, the cake designer told me. We're making something sweet enough to wash away the bitter taste of last year's disaster. I couldn't agree more.